Welcome, everybody. Here we are at Rush Fans Roundtable, episode 277, as we wrap up Snakes and Arrows with We Hold On. We do wrap up. That's it, right? That's the last song on Snakes and Arrows?
Pretty sure.
It
Yeah,
is.
Had a lot of songs.
it's a great record. Great record. It's been so much fun going through this. Going to introduce our panel, Derek. We
Hey
got
guys.
Shane, and we got
Hey.
Alex. And promises to be a great conversation tonight. And we hope that you'll participate and comment. Tell us what you think. We don't know everything as much as we like to think that we do. We want dialogue. We have a new email address, Rush Roundtable, all one word, capital R, at gmail.com. And if you like what we're doing, subscribe. Please subscribe. If you already do, send it to your friends. I've gotten a lot of my students to subscribe just because they want to see what their weird professor is doing. So anybody else that you can get to subscribe would be really cool. Tip us on Kofi. It helps what we do. And then also check out our sponsors. All this is in the description just below. And any support you can give, we're very grateful for. So, without further ado, um, this song, I think, wraps up the whole spirit and message of Snakes and Arrows. We hold on. But first, there's a musical intro, some beautiful guitar work by Alex. So, the other Alex.
Well, it makes sense to be a musical intro since it's an album. I had to say it.
Uh,
Come on. Now, yeah, little drop D action. Obviously, there are certain songs in the Rush catalog. I mean, Between the Wheels is in drop D and Stick It Out. Both of those pretty prominent. At this point, he ends the album with a little drop D riffing. A bit of it's interesting to me because when I was kind of looking at it, I mean, it's just a two measure phrase, eighth notes of 125 ish. Um, he's playing an open D, nice low note going to the C, the flat seven, the octave, and then the fifth. So it's essentially a D minor or is it D7? He doesn't throw in the note that makes it major or minor, no Fs. But then he does go to an F in the low for the low note for the next measure and basically plays that F 6/9 chord that we find in Don't Fear the Reaper, if you think about that. It's like but it's a little different the way he voiced it, but yeah, he's got a little ambiguity going. I mean, it's one of those classic lifes and arpeggios, which is what I've always loved to death. But the idea there is that he's the notes are specific, the notes are crisp and clean, but he's making sure the tonality is a D minor, is a D7, is it an F, is it a G? The pattern kind of ends with a G chord, and that pretty much keeps going throughout the verse until they kick into some higher notes. So
yeah,
I'll shut up.
that was a great, no, that was a great description because I just listened to the song again a little bit before we started recording. And yeah, it's minor, but it's not. It's seventh, but it's not
Mm-hmm.
a major either. It just
Right.
yeah, yeah, and it really sets the stage for what the song I think is about, right? Ambiguity. You said that word, and yeah,
I mean, my
really.
my my quick go-to is to call it a D Dorian type of vibe because I look at it as a D minor chord, and then he's blending the F and the G as a 4 and 5 in the key of C. But ultimately speaking, it's rock. He's playing chords that are perfect for a rock song. So
A
And they
nice
never did
heavy feeling. You kind
yeah.
of feel the drag of the
the
theme of the song.
heaviness.
Because
Yeah.
to me, the kick drum sounds a little heavy too. It's just kind of like thump,
Yeah,
thump, like you're just dragging along. I mean, the song
yeah,
certainly doesn't drag. It's a rocking song,
Right.
but
but it brings you into the emotion, the feeling.
what? Yeah.
Yeah. Wow, that's cool. That's cool. So let's
Cheers.
cheers. Hey, Guinness. Not the Macallan, Bushmills, my go-to Irish whiskey.
Don't hold
Well,
on to
here's some
Guinness.
water from the
Oh,
tap
Somebody
to my
on
pitcher.
this channel is smart. Uh, so, how many times do we tire of all the little battles, threaten to call it quits, tempted to cut and run? How many times do we weather out the stormy evenings, long to slam the front door, drive away into the setting sun? So before you all jump in, one of the things that I think is true all throughout Vapor Trails and Snakes and Arrows is Neil's motorcycle rides. And a lot of metaphors from those experiences get translated into these songs. And, this is, I think, one of those. I mean, whether out the stormy evenings, along the slam the front door, drive away into the setting sun. So, roundtable, heavy first verse.
Neil definitely
Shakespeare said, "Lend me your thoughts."
nice.
Penny
Well,
made
yeah,
lots.
I mean, I think it's interesting that you bring that up as far as, with Neil's propensity from years gone by, decades gone by to work Shakespeare and any other bit of literature. And obviously, towards the end of the career, leading up to their own literature, Clockwork Angels. At this point, this album, especially, I mean, it wasn't as it's direct. It's not as direct and obvious as, like, say, Poison lyrics or Motley Crue lyrics, but it's the sort of thing where it's, direct and not quite as, like I just think earlier today I was thinking of Ricky on Trailer Park Boys complaining about Rush having songs where trees are talking, and he just liked April Wine, with I Want to Rock, or I Like to Rock. Sorry, my apologies to April Wine fans, but it's the sort of thing where, Neil got a little more direct and to the point in his later years. Just saying.
Yeah, less metaphor, but still laden with metaphor.
Oh yeah,
Um,
yeah. That's the thing. It's direct, but it's still there.
yeah.
Painting a good picture of
Mm.
what he wants you to feel. So how many times does he sing the words? How many times? Did anyone count that?
I did not.
10 times.
All right.
Sorry.
A
I know,
lot of
spoiled
times,
it.
yeah.
I
10
should have
times.
got that's why I'm not the professor.
Well, it's a useful thing if we're doing a discussion, just to tear these things apart in all sorts of manners.
Yeah, well, because I've heard it. I don't always agree with it, but I hear it said on the show a lot that Neil repeating lines means it's an important line. But
Right.
if he says it 10 times, it's probably an important line. And I think he uses it too. I think he kind of switches, going back to Good News First, which we had talked about was kind of a dialogue between two narrators or two voices. I kind of think there's a little of that going on here too. And he alternates between two different meanings of how many times.
And, another great thing about Neil's writing, while it's profound, it's deep, it's metaphorical, it's intellectual, it's, informed by philosophy, it also speaks to the everyday person, all of us,
Mm.
right? How many times do we say, how many times do I have to put up with this
Yeah.
or deal with
Yeah.
this? And so immediately that kind of like, you're listening to the song and all of a sudden you're like, yeah, I get that. How many times what? Tell me, Neil.
Yeah. Because it seems like the verse says he's going back and forth between either just monotony, just the same thing over and over again, but then there's also the little battles, all these bad surprises that keep coming up that he has to deal with. How many more times?
Mm.
Was that dramatic?
Thing I think is kind of fun. In this stanza, tempted to cut and run. Obviously, the phrase "cut and run" is, well used in our language. I mean, it got into a figurative heavy use in mid 1800s, so it's been around for a couple hundred years at least. But one of the things I also think of too is that in the first documentary, Neil made reference to some of the bands that he was listening to at the time of Moving Pictures, Talking Heads, um, the Beat, the Police. He did listen to a lot of Ultravox at the time, and that's at a point when Midge started in the band, 1980. And those albums from 80 to 84, the Ultravox albums, I think are great. And they did have a song on one of their albums at that time frame, like in 81, titled Cut and Run. And I don't think, I genuinely am not saying or thinking that Neil was ripping off Midge, but it is the kind of thing where he gave a hat tip, so to speak, to some of his peers, basically, some of these other bands that he enjoyed.
So
And
the common language.
yeah, yeah, and obviously because of the fact that they're all road warriors as far as touring, recording bands. I mean, that becomes a collection and a family because of dealing with all that bands have to deal with. That rock star life is pretty brutal and destructive
So
at its
glamorous.
best. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. I
But
worked in
yeah, I
the
just think
tribute
of it
scene.
if I could,
No, go ahead, Alex.
wait, what?
No,
Oh
I
no,
thought
no,
you.
I saw a freeze on my side because so
Oh,
I
okay.
was just kind of like for me checking because like, is my internet going to be bratty or not? Anyway, no, I was just thinking that provided this gets through, that song I mentioned from Ultravox begins with a chorus of like part of it. It sort of almost has kind of like this spy espionage vibe, early '80s. Pushes on now, and it's time to cut and run. Um, One more twist of the knife, and it's time to cut and run, et cetera, et cetera. And I just, the idea that it ended a stanza. So I'm just thinking Neil did the same thing. He ended a kind of a little bit of a stanza of attempted to cut and run, which obviously he did. He hopped on his bike and went across the country. Now, I've been talking a lot. I'm going to mute myself because I need to shut up.
Derek, I want to hear from Derek right now.
That was
Yes.
actually you anticipated me, Shane. Thank you.
So interestingly enough, when it comes to this album in particular, I think the last five songs are really where this album shines. I wasn't on the past couple of roundtables besides Malignant Narcissism, but listen to this album. I think really the last five songs are kind of the resolution of the entire record. Going from Faithless to this track, this album ranks kind of low on my Rush ranking, but these five songs have really helped me to appreciate this album more. And just this song, especially nowadays, is just a heavy, hard hitting track.
Last three words, hard hitting track. Absolutely right. Yeah, because it does. It pushes. And going into the chorus, the last line of the previous verse, drive away into the setting sun, but then the chorus, keep going on till dawn. Keep going on till dawn. How many times, there it is again, must another line be drawn? And I wonder, kind of, I'd like to see what you guys think about what those lines are he's talking about. We could be down and gone, but we hold on. Keep going on until dawn. How many times must another line be drawn? Again, that repetition. We could be down and gone, but we hold on. So, just real quick, but we hold on. That's the value. That's what we keep doing no matter what. But it's in response to these previous things. So, another line be drawn. We could be down and gone. Round table.
Well, going to the two different voices, I think the verse is kind of the complainer, the problem, and then the chorus presents sort of not really a solution, but motivation. Because the verse has setting sun, the end, darkness. The chorus goes into until dawn, so the awakening, the seeing the light. And I think how many more times the verses, it's how many more times we have to do this? How many more times do I have to put up with this? The chorus is how many more times are you going to draw the line? You keep saying you're tired of it, but you don't do anything about it. You keep putting up with it.
Yeah.
So what do you hold? Is holding on mean we keep going, we keep fighting, or hold on mean there's something that you're holding on to, and because you don't want to let it go, that's why you're stuck in that rut. You're not in a groove, you're in a rut because there's something you're holding on to and not letting go of.
I'm going to get really nerdy here, thinking of
Yeah.
Tolkien and the Lord of the Rings, and Samwise's speech to Frodo. There's
What are we
something
holding
worth
on to?
fighting for.
Yeah.
Right. So why do we hold on in the midst of all the fuckery? Oh, am I allowed to say that on this?
You
Um,
did.
I did, yes.
There goes
Uh,
our G rating.
so much stuff. But it's still worth fighting for, which also means we'll still hold on, no matter what the challenges. We'll keep drawing another line. Which Shan, I really loved what you said about that. Um, we draw the line. Okay, oh, we'll draw it here again. We do this,
Yeah.
but we keep doing it because it's worth doing.
Mm.
One more time and I'm leaving.
Except do it
Earn
again.
more
Okay.
sessions by sleeving.
When I hear roadmap, when I hear draw the line, I actually think of like drawing a line on a map, like when Neil goes on his motorcycle rides.
Right.
How many more miles does he have to go before he actually gets sort of over the grieving?
Yeah, or at least is able to like live in it.
Right.
Yeah, no, that's really good.
Not to mention that this was written right a few months before the recession happened. So this song is kind of a roadmap in and of itself to dealing with hard times.
Mm. Well, it's interesting to
Yeah.
me that some of the imagery too, it speaks back to, I feel like Dreamline really came up in my head. And that's the idea of that. He's mentioning, a roadmap of Jupiter and, the aspect towards the end of Dreamline on a desert highway straight to the heart of the sun. I mean, just some of the imagery of traveling, the imagery of moving, the imagery of the day and the night of it. I mean, you have someone like a fellow Canadian on their side, Lorena McKenna, had her song Dark Night of the Soul. We kind of have the imagery of the setting sun or the night, or then the imagery of the rising sun, and or just riding into the sun as it sets, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, there is a reality of it. There's all this imagery we have, and like Dave said at the beginning of this, the idea of just all the it is pretty direct lyrics, but he still he just layered them with so much meaning that we could take based on our mileage and how it varied, so to speak.
Okay, damn you, Alex. You brought up
Sorry,
Lorena McKenna,
had to.
and I'm trying not to go down an entire other rabbit hole.
Hey,
But also
rabbit.
the Dark Night of the Soul.
Yeah.
That was originally St. John of the Cross.
Mm,
Uh, Lovely, a poem. And then Christian artist John Michael Talbot, whom I'm acquainted with, did a wonderful version of that in the late 80s, early 90s. But Lorena McKennett's version is absolutely fantastic and captures that ambiguity of knowledge, not knowing, certainty, doubt. I mean, it's really so. I'm going to stop because I'm going to do like a whole thing on Lorena McKenna because she's been one of my favorite artists since 1993. Love her. I could show you this stuff, but I won't. But that connection, beyond the fact that they're both Canadian, between Neil's way of approaching, uh, you know, again, Christian mysticism, the cloud of unknowing,
mm,
uh, and what Lorena did with that song and how it tracks on with how Neil approaches life. So very different, entirely different, but it seems to show a universality of human themes, I think,
yeah.
where we can actually, yeah, you experience it differently, but at the end of the day, in some ways we're experiencing the same thing in different ways and we share the same struggles, so to bring it back, but we hold on.
Yeah.
So the reason I said damn you for bring up Lorena McKenna because I could just totally
Oh, yeah.
forget what we're doing here and go off on Lorena McKenna.
I think we're
She's
we're
majestic.
we're inadvertently creating a bunch of series of episodes now, which if I don't know how deeply any Ryan and Paul would be watching this episode for the editing,
We'll
but
be
basically,
fired soon.
I think we're going to have to create new episodes where we talk about the supposed influence or similar influence. Okay, I'm just going to get
The
off that one
similarities, the connections
yeah,
between people that never connected.
right. But we
Let's go with
connect them in
that.
our heads.
Well, Neil's lyrics lend to a lot of Rush adjacent tangents.
Yeah,
And we are
that's
the perfect people to get lost in a tangent.
Yeah. How long
That's
have we been
us.
talking about this? Yeah.
Indeed, it is us. It is us. Anybody else? Derek, you have anything to add?
No,
Because when you
not
do,
right
it's
now.
always like you're like, that person that is listening, but then when you speak, it shuts us all down because what you offer is so good. So I'm just making sure.
I guess it's my specialty.
All right. So how many times do we chafe against the repetition, thinking that repetition must be just the humdrum of life? I don't know. Straining against a fate measured out in coffee breaks. I'm the host, but I want to talk. But I won't. How many times do we swallow our ambitions? Little subdivisions going on there. Rat race. Long to give up the same old way, find another road to take.
I thought subdivisions too.
Yeah.
The some will kind of going back to what are you holding on to? The some will sell their dreams for small desires line. That's what this reminds me of. The chafe against repetition. No, swallow our ambition. What is your there's something that you're holding on to. You just you don't want the change. You don't want the discomfort that you're gonna have to face of breaking out of this rut. What's more painful, continuing to stay in the rut, or the change, the difference of what you're going to face when you try to break out of the rut.
Yeah, and you don't want to not fit in with what's cool. We think of subdivisions. That was obviously 1982 when Signals came out, right? October 1982, I think. So translate that to today with tech boys and the corporate world. You got to fit in. You got to do hustle culture. You got to not do that. You know, to chafe against that repetition, straining against that fate that going to be nerdy here. What Martin Heidegger would call Gestell in framing. We're shaped by uh, how the world is structured. You don't get a choice whether or not you use a cell phone or a smartphone. All these things are necessary to participate in the world. So you don't just get to do that. You have ambitions. You know, but I like this because he says I said I wasn't going to talk, and I'm talking. We swallow our ambitions. I think that's kind of a really nice way of saying that what our ambitions are very different from what ambition means in the current world. Right. My
Yeah.
ambitions might be to live a balanced life and simple and not driven by the machine and whatnot. So I have to swallow those ambitions to have uh, the ambitions I'm told I'm supposed to have by the modern world. And I have to do that kind of too because I have to survive.
Mm.
You know,
Got to
and
pay
you
the
got to do
bills.
what you got to do.
And chafe is a good word because
Yeah.
he's not calloused. He's not numb to it. It feels it over and over again. It's more of a chafing than a callous or a numbness.
Oh yeah, yeah. I think a lot of us, probably most of us, have been there as far as you're especially if you're young and in a job, 20 something, and you're just working some job that works for you at that point, but just the frustration of it, the insult of it, the attitude of it. I mean, and it's certainly you think of Neil at Caress of Steel time frame and getting into an argument with someone like a record company meet and greet where he was not going to amenable to the word compromise at all. And then as time goes on, a few years later, writing subdivisions and referencing some of the individuals who would lose the race to rats. But at the same time, too, not everyone, not all of us are allowed, which then also kind of speaks for losing it. Not all of us are allowed to live our full dreams. Like if and that's kind of the I guess that's almost the unfortunate, the tragic frustration of it is that not every single person that would ever be born is destined or designed or, as I said, allowed to live our lives to our full potential.
Yeah.
And in some cases, that might be dangerous.
But I think allowed is the right word because, whether it's musicians, authors, um, people that could be they're just as good as those that made the break.
Yeah.
But they never made the break.
Right.
And that sort of thing.
A little bit like the larger bowl, actually.
Yeah.
You bring it up like that.
Yep. Yeah, it's a good reference going back to the beginning of the album, definitely.
Yeah. And do we swallow our ambitions, long to give up the same old way? We're stuck in the same old way. We're kind of stuck in that. I mean, if you think of the idealism of Neil from Fly By Night forward, I mean, Fly By Night, I'm out of here. I'm gonna do my thing and
Yep.
whatnot. And even though I think he would entirely acknowledge if things worked out for him, it's very easy to talk about this when you're the greatest drummer in the world, making millions of dollars, and you can kind of write your own ticket. But he still feels it and knows that many of us can't write our own ticket.
Mm-hmm.
And some we would not choose, but we're not always free, Andre. Um, but but we try, but we hold on. And then that last little line from that verse, long to give up the same old way, find another road to take. That's actually, I think, another way linguistically of saying that we hold on. We'll find another road to take. We just keep going. So,
Still
and
a road.
then, what's that?
Still a road. Still another road.
Yeah, still another road. So, chorus, keep going on until dawn. And I love musically here, every time they shift from the verse to the chorus, the tempo picks up.
Yeah, Lifeson kicks in with more kind of a little bit of a 16th note pattern. It's a little mix of eighths and 16ths, and he's also jumping octaves. I mean, he's still basically staying with that D minor F vibe. So he isn't really expanding the tonality a whole lot, but it is basically just, C, or A, C, D, 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 and then just, as they say, kicks in the 16ths. It drives it, it gives it a little bit of a double time vibe.
And there's kind of a similarity here to what he does back in Far Cry. People are going to comment, the guy should just stop talking, but
Stop
you know,
singing.
you definitely don't sing. But just to know whatever it is, and then just a half step up and just playing that in those 16th notes, and he does that in Far Cry in the solo that, and he does that here as well. So bringing it back from the first song on this record, to the end,
And the changing of the octaves that he does gives it a frenetic feeling. It just makes you, to me, they're just going up and down.
Yeah.
In the neck. It just makes you cringe in a good way.
Well, he does that in ways that like no other guitarist does.
Yeah.
And he does things that he doesn't get recognition for so many times that are creative and melodic. As Taylor Hawkins said, melodic and chaotic solos. And they're so subtle. And I have a friend, I won't mention his name out of respect.
Thank you.
Not you, Shay.
Oh.
Who's also a guitar player, and he's really into Eddie Van Halen and just guitar rock and stuff like that. And he doesn't get Alex Lifeson.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure.
But what I've said to him several times, okay, let me play you this solo. He goes, oh, that's. I said, okay, play it. Play that solo. I mean, you can do it. I love Eddie Van Halen, Trailblazer. This is not anti Eddie Van Halen. But Alex, or my friend, play that Alex solo, and then he sits down with his guitar and he can't figure it out. It's like, what? Oh no, wait, what's he doing?
Not only that, the vibe that he adds to Neil's lyrics really complete the picture. They finish and help enforce whatever it is they wanted you to feel. Those two things combined together really make you feel it.
Mm-hmm.
Damn it.
Yeah, that's the great thing about Rush is Getty and Alex have always been able to create soundscapes and music that go back and support the lyrics and make you feel the emotion of the lyrics musically.
Well, it's a soundtrack.
I felt that. Of our lives. So find another road to take. Chorus. Keep going until dawn. How many times must another line be drawn? We could be down and gone. We hold on. Keep holding on so long. Now he changes it here. You know, keep holding on so long. Been doing this a long time. I keep holding on. Because there's a chance that we might not be so wrong. We could be down and gone, but we hold on. I go back to Alex's instrumental Hope.
Mm.
These lyrics are hope. You know, we might not be so wrong. Maybe it's worth what we're doing. Maybe there's something worth fighting for, Frodo. But we could be down and gone, but we hold on. I love this stuff.
Nice.
There's a reason why we love this band. And it's not because they're singing about girls, 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 and she's my
Again with
cherry.
Motley Crue.
Okay, there's a place, man, for just brainless
Yeah,
rock
yeah.
and headbanging. That's
Oh,
awesome.
yeah.
Yeah. Don't go away mad.
Yeah.
But Neil's
Just
lyrics.
the way it's sung too, the little bit of reverb or whatever that is on Getty's vocals. I kind of stood back in my seat for a second, like, whoa, this is pretty powerful.
This whole song is just keeps giving you that drive of holding on.
I think Getty got more dramatic on the last, or as kind of like an asymptote towards the last two albums. He would get more and more dramatic, I think, with little exceptions. Like there's a part in the Necromancer, I think it's a Necromancer, where he's just screaming and it's super. No, it's no one at the bridge, and it's so emotional and so dramatic. But other than that, not really a lot of drama. A lot of the rock screaming, but not the drama. And I think as he got more sophisticated, like from I don't know, like maybe the last 5 or 6 albums or so, he got where he was kind of mastering drama a little bit, like Cold Fire, I think is a good one, where he's doing the back and forth. The drama is there, and you can kind of feel it, what they're wanting you to feel.
Of course, with Cold Fire is a good example of having the vocal harmonies where, like for some of those live, some of the tour, he would sing more of the alternate line as the harmony, which for me, there's that one which I've referenced many times on some of these episodes, that was the Auburn Hills, that could be found on YouTube easily, where Getty, sings the line in a way that just gives it an extra nice little melodic kick that, as Shane's saying, had a little more of a dramatic feel in a song that obviously was meant to be very dramatic as far as relationships go.
Yeah. Because, when they were young, wandering the face of the earth, there was so much before them, but, you live so much tragedy, so much, you mature, you're not as naive as you once used to be. It's, you question whether or not you should keep going on.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Well, they questioned it on many times. There's certainly Neil did,
as
obviously.
a band.
Yeah.
Do we tour again?
Well, even for Presto, I remember getting I think it might have been a copy of Spin Magazine, probably early 1990, late 89, that had an article on them for the Presto album. And right then and there, I think one of them was talking about every album of recent albums, late 80s. Neil was always wondering if he wanted to go on. Which to me was a surprise to read, because no, but it's, obviously in retrospect, we look at the career and it's like, oh, he went on until he couldn't. And that's what we would only hope for from people who are so powerful and influential in our lives.
I think, with Neil, like Beyond the Lighted Stage talks about, he got over the touring life really, really early. Didn't want to do it.
We're number one.
But still kept doing it. And then he went through his own tragedy, and everybody thought it was over. But then he came back and then decided he wanted to be the best drummer he could be. So he kept pushing, he kept, going on until dawn, until he got to that point where, I'm at the top of my game, and I'm not going to keep pushing beyond that and go below the standard I've set for myself. So yeah, I mean that's Neil.
Of course, you think of the Time Stand Still documentary where he was saying that, he wound up kind of contacting the guys saying, it's like, I need gainful employment because obviously in Ghost Rider, he's talking about, his accountant saying, you have about this much money until to live, for this many months, or which is weird to think of someone like Neil Peart reaching a point where he's saying, I could live in my, Quebec mansion for X number of months and then I'm out of money. It's like, but luckily he had a brand that allowed him to come back and do all this, snakes and arrows and etc., to make
And
that gainful employment work for him and not measure out his life in coffee breaks.
oh yeah, we didn't talk about that, and I don't want to make this episode too long, but if you
35
look at
minutes.
what's that,
We're at 36 minutes.
36
We
minutes,
got
okay.
plenty of time.
And I'm going to tell you, we say that, and then all of a sudden, we
And
got
all
to
of a
stop.
sudden, it's 53 minutes.
But
Sorry, Paul.
We just finished
measuring out
chemistry.
life,
It's okay.
yeah, straining against a fate measured out in coffee breaks. I mean, back in the old days, the coffee break was in the company office, the
Old
coffee
days.
pot. Now
It still
Starbucks,
happens.
you know,
We still do that. We still like just man, we just survive coffee break to
that's
coffee break until we can go
the
home.
water
That's corporate
cooler,
life. Oh yeah. It
you know,
still applies.
yeah, and it's like coffee break. I mean, we're measuring life in when we get to walk away from what we're not happy at all with, but is a fate that we have to deal with, you know. And yeah, and of course coffee is the thing that like defines everything today, right?
Amen to that.
Whether it's coffee break in the office or Starbucks or, Dutch Brothers or, whatever the coffee thing, but it's it's a break, from what we have to do that we don't want to do. And we have to think there must be another road to take. So going back to that verse. Um, but anyway, I wanted to go back to coffee break because I wanted to talk about it, but we didn't. But it's symbolic uh, of the stepping away from the life that we have to live that we're not content in. But we get a coffee break.
Just a few
Yeah.
minutes.
Yeah, and cherish those few minutes, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So this tracks. How many times do we wonder if it's even worth it? There's got to be some other way to get me through the days. And then I'm going to go ahead and do the chorus, and then we can come back because to get there's got to be some other way to get me through the days. Keep going on till dawn. How many times must another line be drawn? We could be down and gone, but we hold on. Keep going on until dawn. How many times must another line be drawn? We could be down and gone, but we hold on. So back to the verse, there's got to be some, how many times do we wonder if it's even worth it? There's got to be another way, some other way to get me through the days. Shane, you had wheels turning.
Well, I mean, first of all, from the lyrics, how you wonder if it's even worth it. I mean, every day when the alarm goes off, you got to go into the office. You're like, is it worth this again? Do I have to do this again? But then
what is it?
Paying the mortgage, eating, kids' college,
Eating.
all those
I like
stupid
eating.
adult things. Who came up with this plan? Yeah. It's just stupid. But also from a songwriting standpoint, if you're writing a song and you're going to have a third verse instead of a bridge, cut it in half. Because it really, when you just have that half of a third, you notice all the others are 8 lines, and then this third verse is 4 lines. When you just have those 4 lines instead of 8, and then you get right into that chorus, especially with what's going on, how they changed up the music in this third verse, it's kind of a surprise. It's not the same old. It's not. I mean, it's only been 2 verses, so it's not same old thing. But it really mixes it up. It's a little bit of a musical surprise. I could have had that one for that musical surprise episode, couldn't I?
Yeah, come up with more surprises.
Yeah. And then there's a lot of things going on musically on that verse too that they changed. Like on the first two verses, Neil's kind of doing like is it first and third beats or second and fourth beats? And then on this third verse, it's every beat. Boom, 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 really driving it on every beat. And then Alex is just kind of he's switched from that picking pattern that he had done, and he's just holding out that screaming, screeching feedback, just really adding towards that tense feeling. And then Getty changes up the bass line, where he kind of holds that higher note for a bit, and then kind of as it goes into the last couple of lines, kind of does a little run down the neck before they just crash into that badass chorus. I just love that third verse. It starts at 3 minutes exactly, so go listen to it right now.
Yeah. But that's the thing about these episodes. It's like, you know, you guys offer so much. I'm like, I gotta go back and hear that, you
Yeah,
know.
there's
And
listen
it's
to the
like,
verses, the music, and even the production, and then get to that third verse and hear what they're all doing differently. Again, with the same progressions, it's still a verse, but it just
it's like
it's
the
a,
same measures, it's the same bar, but what they do in between them is entirely different. And
Mhm.
it sounds the same unless you pay very close attention.
yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah,
Yes.
Lifeson really got into those overdubs as far as a lot of 16th notes to push things along more solidly, and certain points where, as I was saying with Malignant Narcissism, that like Getty's bass line was bringing in just an F natural off of or an F naturals, but he was hitting a B flat at some point, I think. In which case he's bringing in Phrygian, which there's a point in here where they were bringing the tonality into more Phrygian realms, and a little Phrygian dominant run, if I remember right, in there that Lifeson threw in as a fill. I'm wondering myself,
Sweetness.
is there any imagery to go along with this?
Oh, was there a cover? Was there art from the album?
It's possible. I wonder,
Would Hugh Simon put something together for this song alone?
Would he
did
dare?
he ever do that? Let's see.
Let's see if we can see.
There it is.
We might see. There we go.
There
I
it
see.
is. There's
I
my
see
house
it.
on the hill.
Little
My
house
old
on the prairie.
car. Is that dawn or is that sunset or dawn?
Exactly. Yeah. Sunrise, or
Is,
I
is he,
feel like it'd be sunset myself, but
he's coming home, right?
because yeah, it
He's
looks like the
driving
car's coming home.
towards.
Unless they were
Yeah.
driving all night, could be a thing. Hands were wet on the wheel. Not a Rush song, I know, but deal with it.
Real deal.
Breeders.
Um,
The breeders covered it. Who was?
so
White Lion covered it.
so yeah,
Oh,
whether
radar
it's
love.
sunset or sunrise, we don't know. So that speaks to the song. But you have a house in the distance with one light on upstairs,
Hmm.
Somebody's waiting.
and then the
Probably.
car. So maybe there might be something worth holding on for. I don't know. Again, there are multiple interpretations and understandings that we all bring our own experience to that are all valid, right? It's not some closed meaning that this is the right one and that's the wrong one.
Yeah.
So this imagery, um, very interesting way to interpret the song in a piece of art, in a photograph.
To me, it's more what you're holding on for. This is the light at the end of the tunnel when you can finally get out of the rat race, get out of the rut.
Mm.
This is why you do it all. This is the reason.
Yeah.
And maybe
Is this
somebody's
worth
waiting
it?
for me in that room where the light's still on.
This imagery
Right?
reminds me of some of the work of modern photographer Todd Hido, who, mid 50s, based out of the Bay Area. He's done a lot of photos where he would have a singular house or a row of houses, but he focuses in literally and figuratively on a house at night, usually with a light on. So his images often did not or would not feature people, but there's an implied humanity element there because we're assuming that someone's in the house. which is obviously what we're doing right this second. And then to me, it's interesting that I feel like this also makes me think of the painter Andrew Wyeth, who died in 2009, with his very, very famous painting of the girl kind of seated in a field with a house on the hill. And that's one of those things that if people looked up Weyth, you would probably say, "Oh, I've seen this image before." Which both, as I say, the high dose, out exterior photography and Andrew Wyeth's paintings, to me, both live here. And I'm not saying again that Hugh Syme might have copied them, but it could be a universality of this is what we think of when we think of the home.
There is a kind of universality of human experience.
Yeah.
That's testified to in philosophy and psychology and sociology, and all of multiple differences which need to be recognized, acknowledged, celebrated, because it's a rainbow. But at the same time, there are things that we all absolutely share, just in different ways.
Mm.
And another thing about this particular image that strikes me, because I bring my own experience to it, I grew up in rural Indiana. I can't tell you how many driveways were just like this.
Oh, yeah.
Tire worn tracks, but grass in between, you know, and cars coming up long driveways to an old farmhouse and whatnot. Um, and it was always sort of a coming home.
Mm.
In these driveways. I mean, it's and they're not the cookie cutter manicured driveways and yards that we experience in so much of suburbia today. Um, so just an old curmudgeon, nostalgic for those good old days. But I still like running water and the ability to flush toilets and things like that.
Running water is awesome.
Yeah, I'm for it. Absolutely for it.
I'm a huge fan of running water. Swimming, I don't swim. Running water, oh yeah. You're talking my language.
I like it as much as condensed air. Cooled condensed air is also nice.
Yeah. So, friends, great discussion as always. One last round around the round table for anybody that has something they want to speak a concluding word. Let's do that, and then we'll wrap up.
I've said a lot.
So much. My throat's a little sore now from. Did we mention the coffee?
We're going to.
He did.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
At the beginning, and then we're going to do it at the end as well, because
it's the right thing to do.
We need support and do what we do.
Zoom does charge for memberships if you want to be online for more than 40 minutes.
And the prices just went up recently.
Oh, I'm glad I'm staying free on my account.
So,
Bragger. Just bragging.
So what a great wrap up to a great album. I just remember, it had been 5 years since Rush album. And they did the little teaser with Far Cry with the Alex Lifeson chord, and I was just so excited. And the album did not disappoint. And then every song is powerful. And I think this final song, We Hold On, is the heart of everything that came before. Good, bad, right, wrong, indifferent. And so it's really good. It's been a great album. In coming days, coming weeks, we'll move on to Clockwork Angels. Until then, we hold on. Again, sponsors, all this is below. Take a look, support them. We have our own merch. Rush fans, support us on Ko-fi. And we appreciate it so much. And we appreciate those of you that tune in and listen to our inane babbling for 30, 45, 50, 60 minutes. It means a lot. It might mean that you're as crazy as we are, which if so, hey, maybe you might want to come on an episode. Email us. Our new email, rushroundtable@gmail.com. Always looking for fresh meat. I mean fresh voices. Great people. It's a great community, and we're very glad to be a part of it, and glad that you're watching. And until next time, hold on, which is also a really cool Triumph song. Appreciate y'all, folks. Take care.